Okay, let's cut to the chase. You're here because you want to understand what's really happening across tech, climate, global events, the economy, all of it, right?
Yeah.
You see the headlines, that constant buzz, and you just want the actual signal without feeling totally overwhelmed by the noise.
Exactly. And that's what this is all about. Look, this isn't just another news roundup.
Mm-hmm.
We've really gone deep into a specific set of sources from around April 15th, 2025. We're talking Deloitte's Tech Outlook, the European State of the Climate Report,
Right.
financial news from the Hindu Business Line, the Economic Times, general stuff from Jogar and Josh, KPMG on geopolitical risks, even WHO on World Health Day.
It's a real mix.
A real mix. Think of it as like your curated briefing.
Yeah.
Designed to give you the essentials, the core understanding.
Okay. So our mission today, pull out the key threads from all that. We're talking the big shifts in tech, AI, cloud, semiconductors, yeah, and managing risk, always risks.
Highly.
Then there's the European climate story, which sounds pretty serious. What's shaking the global economy? Big events.
Uh-huh.
Right. Geopolitical situation, which always feels uncertain, and a really important global health push, too. Ready to dive in.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah.
How about we start with the tech industry? Deloitte's report.
Yeah.
It paints an interesting picture.
Okay.
They really highlight the rough patch tech hit in 2022, 2023, inflation, interest rates going up, just a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, I remember that. Softened spending, lower demand.
Exactly. Market caps falling, layoffs.
Yeah.
It was definitely a period of adjustment, bit of a reset.
But the outlook for 2024 sounds more optimistic, like they've weathered the storm.
It does, yeah.
Mhm.
There's this feeling, according to the report, that the industry's healthier now. Apparently, like 62% of tech execs feel it's healthy or very healthy
Wow. Okay.
and ready to take on more risk again.
Yeah,
That's quite a turnaround in just a year or so, isn't it?
it really is. So what's driving that optimism? Still the usual suspects.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The focus is still squarely on innovation and growth, especially in, well, cloud, AI, and cybersecurity. They're not new, but they're just getting more critical.
Right. And AI, specifically generative AI, sounds like it's hitting a new phase.
Definitely. The report talks about moving past the pilot projects, the experiments. Now, companies are really grappling with, okay, how do we actually use this?
Uh-huh.
How do we put it into production? And crucially, how do we make money from it? It's moving from the lab to the real world.
From theory to practice. Makes sense.
Exactly. And then there's this other big tension the report highlights: globalization versus self-reliance.
Yeah. The supply chain headaches.
You got it. Geopolitical stuff, all that volatility we've seen. It's forcing companies to really think hard about where they get their stuff, where they operate, balancing that global reach with, needing to be more self-sufficient.
It's like building in more resilience, isn't it? Diversifying suppliers, looking at different regions.
Mhm.
It's not just a nice to have anymore.
Nope. It sounds like a strategic must-do to stay competitive. So Deloitte flags 6 key areas for the 2025 outlook. Where should we start?
How about risk management? Seems foundational. The report says cyber threats are escalating, not just simmering, but actively getting worse.
Yeah, escalating is the word. You've got the Internet of Things, all those connected devices. Generative AI itself creates new attack surfaces, plus our reliance on the cloud. It all adds up.
And the cost, they put a number on it.
A huge one. Projected global cost of cybercrime in 2025, get this, $10.5 trillion.
Wow. Okay. That's staggering.
It really puts it in perspective, doesn't it? So, no surprise, the security products market is booming, expected to hit $200 billion by 2028. It's this constant arms race.
So what's the advice? Just buy more security stuff?
Well, yes and no. It's more about a proactive, layered approach. Think multiple rings of defense. Strong encryption is key, especially for cloud data. And adopting zero-trust architectures.
Zero trust, like trust no one, verify everything.
Pretty much. Even if you're already inside the network, you constantly have to prove who you are, like airport security for your data.
Okay. And they mentioned security debt. Sounds bad.
It is. It's like taking shortcuts when building a house. Maybe saves time now, but causes big problems later.
Right.
In software, it's things like developers giving way too many permissions, or embedding passwords right in the code to speed things up. Easy targets later on.
So the fix is?
Build security in from the start. Secure coding practices, limiting permissions, managing who gets privilege access really tightly. Don't rack up that debt.
And it's weird how new tech, like Gen AI, is both a risk and a potential solution, right?
Absolutely. A double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Gen AI can help attackers craft super convincing phishing emails, maybe even automate attacks.
Scary.
But It can also sift through massive amounts of security data way faster than humans, spotting threats, helping us respond quicker.
But are companies actually securing their AI projects?
There's the rub. The report notes a worrying gap, like 82% of execs know it's essential, but only 24% of current Gen AI projects are actually secured properly.
That needs to change fast. What about quantum computing? Still off in the future?
Mostly. But it's on the horizon. The big worry is it could eventually break today's encryption. So there's a big push for quantum-resistant cryptography. Spending there is set to quadruple.
Okay. And beyond cyber, there are those geopolitical risks again. Trade tensions, tech nationalism.
Yep, they loom large. Governments using export controls, trying to boost their own tech sectors. It messes with global supply chains.
So diversification is the name of the game.
Pretty much. Diversify suppliers, diversify manufacturing locations, reduce reliance on any one potentially unstable region. The report even mentions companies moving into India and Vietnam as examples.
And climate change isn't just an environmental issue anymore, it's an operational risk too.
Directly. Think severe weather knocking out power grids. That hits data centers, cloud servers, critical stuff.
The companies need to plan for that, like physically.
Yeah, maybe relocate facilities, reinforce infrastructure against storms, spread out data centers geographically so if one goes down, others can pick up the slack. It's about operational reliability.
The report really pushes tech leaders with some tough questions on all this, doesn't it? Like, how are you stopping threats? Do you really understand the geopolitical shifts?
It does. It's about moving beyond just acknowledging the risks to having concrete strategies. And for Gen AI, the questions are just as vital.
Like building trust. How do you even do that with AI?
Good question. It comes down to the data it's trained on. Is it secure? Is it high quality? Clear governance, who's responsible? And ensuring the AI isn't biased or unreliable. Plus being transparent with employees and users about how it's used, protecting their data.
Okay, shifting slightly.
Well,
How is Gen AI changing software development itself? AI coding assistants.
yeah, they're becoming much more common. They can boost productivity, definitely. But the report raises flags.
Such as?
Well, you need proper training so developers use them right. Is the code any good? Is it secure? Is it biased? What does this mean for software jobs long term? Lots to consider.
And human oversight is still critical, I assume, especially for important stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Plus, there's this idea of AI driving natural language interfaces, basically, talking to software in plain English. That could be a big deal for accessibility.
Interesting. Now, this next bit surprised me. Reignited interest in private clouds. I thought everything was moving to the public cloud.
That's the common narrative, yeah. But private clouds have some real pluses. Cost predictability is a big one. Real-time resource allocation. Avoiding paying for cloud capacity you don't actually use.
And especially for AI, like training those huge models.
Exactly. That takes massive computing power. Having dedicated infrastructure in a private cloud can be way more efficient and sometimes cheaper for those intensive ongoing tasks.
Plus the security angle again, right? Keeping sensitive data under closer control.
Definitely. Data security, regulatory compliance, they're huge drivers, especially with rules around data sovereignty where data has to stay within a certain country. Private clouds make that easier.
So companies might run their own or use a provider, but it's kept separate.
Right. We're even seeing providers offer these packaged solutions, hardware, software, GPUs, AI tools, all deployable within the customer's own data center, or specialized AI agents running on private platforms.
So it's not private cloud instead of public cloud. It's more like a blend.
Exactly. It's leading to more hybrid setups, finding the right mix, and there's value in providers enabling open source AI models to run securely on premises within those private clouds.
Gives enterprises flexibility.
Precisely. Best of both worlds. The report pushes providers.
Oh.
How easy can you make this? How do you help navigate data sovereignty? How do you build out that private cloud ecosystem?
Okay, let's switch gears again. Mergers and acquisitions, M&A and tech. Sounds like that might pick up.
That's a projection. The software sector is growing fast, maybe 14% annually. And enterprises have complex needs, right? Integrating different clouds, custom apps, managing cloud costs, FinOps, they call it even sustainability reporting.
So it's quicker to buy that capability than build it, especially if borrowing money gets cheaper.
Potentially, yeah. That classic build or buy calculation might tilt towards buy. The report points to the Cisco Splunk deal as a prime example.
Combining strengths for AI and security, wasn't it?
Exactly. It shows this trend of pulling together different pieces, infrastructure, software, security, services to offer more holistic platforms. Partnerships are big too, like Dell and NVIDIA collaborating on AI infrastructure.
And they mentioned reverse acqui-hiring, buying a company just for the people.
Yeah, sometimes the main prize isn't the product, it's the engineering talent. It's a way to snap up skilled teams.
But it's not just about acquiring. Companies are also looking at selling off parts of their business, divestitures.
Right. Taking a hard look at their portfolio. What's core? What's not? Selling non-core units frees up cash and focus to invest in the main priorities.
So leaders need to spot those M&A opportunities and figure out what parts of their own house might be better off elsewhere.
That's the strategic juggle.
Okay, last tech point, tax and regulations. Sounds like a headache is brewing there.
Definitely getting more complex. The big one is the OECD's Pillar 2 initiative, the global minimum tax 15% for big multinationals.
How does that change things?
Well, companies need to prove their tax rates country by country. Much more reporting. It'll impact where they locate operations, where they hold intellectual property, how they structure deals. It's a big shift.
And it's not just corporate tax, something about digital platforms too.
Yeah, in the EU, there's DSE 7. If a platform facilitates sales or services involving EU sellers, they have new reporting duties. Collect more data, store it securely, meet EU privacy rules.
Plus all the different content rules popping up everywhere, privacy, consumer protection.
Exactly. It's a patchwork.
Yeah.
Especially tricky with generative AI potentially creating all sorts of content. Companies need to know the rules in every market they operate in.
And the EU's AI Act, that sounds significant.
Very. It classifies AI by risk level. The highest risk stuff, unacceptable, is banned from early 2025.
Yeah.
Most high-risk systems need to comply by mid-2026. It's setting a global benchmark, really.
So, bottom line, tech companies need better systems, ERP, cyber, data governance, just to stay compliant.
Absolutely. They need to model tax scenarios, track regulations everywhere, and make damn sure their AI meets standards for transparency, explainability, accountability. It's a major compliance challenge.
Okay, wow. That's a lot on the tech front. Let's take a breath and pivot completely. European State of the Climate Report for 2024, the headline.
Stark. Warmest year on record for Europe. Period.
Not just creeping up, but a clear record.
Yeah, and not just by a little bit. Records fell across Central, Eastern, and Southeastern Europe.
Yeah.
And the bigger picture trend, Europe's warming faster than any other continent. That's concerning.
And wasn't the same everywhere across Europe. You mentioned an east-west split.
Exactly. Really noticeable contrast. Eastern Europe, generally record warm and dry. Western Europe, also warm, but much, much wetter.
Okay, so give us some key stats. What stood out?
Well, record high annual temps across almost half the continent. Highest ever recorded sea surface temperatures, both for the whole European region and the Mediterranean specifically.
That sounds bad for marine life, among other things.
It does. And precipitation.
Yeah.
Western Europe's had one of its top 10 wettest years since 1950.
Which led to?
Flooding. The most widespread flooding since 2013, affected almost a third of the river network, hit over 400,000 people, and tragically cost over 300 lives.
Gosh. And heat stress, is that becoming more common?
Definitely. 2024 saw the second highest number of days with strong, very strong, or extreme heat stress. About 60% of Europe saw more of those days than average.
Is there any good news in the report?
A sliver. Renewable energy generation hit a record high 45% of electricity produced. That's positive.
Okay, something. But offset by?
Well, record low number of frost days in many areas. And glaciers. Continued significant ice loss everywhere. Scandinavia and Svalbard saw their highest mass loss ever recorded.
And wildfires remain a huge problem.
Massive. The report highlights huge fires in Portugal. 110,000 hectares burned in just 1 week. That was a huge chunk of the total burned area across Europe for the year. Devastating for those communities.
The report also spotlighted specific events, right? Like Storm Boris.
Yeah, that caused widespread flooding in Central and Eastern Europe. Also severe flooding in Valencia, Spain. And then Southeastern Europe got hit with this prolonged, intense heat wave and drought.
Longest heat wave on record there.
Yep. Record number of heat stress days, record number of tropical nights where it stays above 20 Celsius all night. Really tough conditions.
And the projections aren't great either. More flood risk, more heat deaths.
That's what the science indicates, yeah. The IPCC projections reference suggest increased flood risk and potentially 30,000 extra heat-related deaths per year if we hit 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. It's sobering.
But you mentioned some progress on adaptation, cities making plans.
That's the encouraging part. The number of European cities with climate adaptation plans has roughly doubled since 2018, up to 51%. Shows growing awareness and action, which is crucial.
And that east-west split affected more than just rain and temperature. Sunshine, too.
Yeah, influence sunshine duration, soil moisture, river flows, even the potential for solar power generation. Sunnier east versus cloudier west.
Okay. And the glaciers just shrinking everywhere.
Pretty much all regions. That record loss in Scandinavia and Svalbard is particularly alarming. It makes sense that 2025 is the UN International Year of Glaciers Preservation. Svalbard itself is warming incredibly rapidly.
So the climate picture in Europe, it's clearly changing, and fast.
Undeniably, the data is stark, and the consequences are already being felt across the continent.
Right. Let's shift again. Global events, the economy, drawing from those news sources. April 15th, 2025, a special day for some?
Yes, it marked Pohela Boishak, the Bengali New Year, year 1432.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a big day of hope, tradition, fresh starts for Bengalis worldwide. Lots of rituals, cleaning homes, new clothes, temple visits, special greetings. Businesses start new account books called Halakata.
Sounds like a really positive community focus.
Very much so. Community resilience, renewal. Lots of traditional music, food, cultural events.
Okay. And the general news headlines from Jurganjosh. What were kids hearing in assembly?
A mix, as always, internationally. French officials asked to leave Algeria, U.S. Commerce Secretary talking chip taxes, China's Xi Jinping and Vietnam discussing protectionism, Philippines raising South China Sea issues, China's export numbers.
Busy day on the world stage. And in India.
Deportations reported,
Uh-huh.
a lawsuit after a ransom call to a former minister, PM Modi speaking about the Constitution, a Supreme Court hearing on tree felling, paying respects for Ambedkar Jayanti, Kerala declaring a constituency poverty-free.
And sports. Always got to have sports.
Of course. Chennai Super Kings apparently losing, captain injured, Manchester United off to a bad start in their season.
Plus a thought for the day and word of the day.
Yep, every day is a chance to make a difference. And the word was bright. Gives you that snapshot of daily news flow, doesn't it?
It does. Okay, let's talk markets. The Hindu business line. What was the vibe? Holiday week, so quiet.
Expected to be range-bound, yeah, because of Good Friday.
Yeah.
Still plenty to watch. U.S.-China trade tensions were bubbling. India's WPI inflation data was due.
And earnings season kicking off. Big names reporting.
Definitely. Infosys, Wipro, HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank. Results like those really move the needle on sentiment. Lots of analyst chatter, too. Nifty targets, global equity stances from Citi, Jefferies.
Was the market volatility easing up at all?
Seemed like it. The India VIX index was down. Analysts saw resistance for the Nifty index around 23,000, 23,200, support near 22,500. The early indicator, Gift Nifty, pointed to a flat open.
Any specific worries? Trump tariffs still a thing?
Yeah, that was mentioned as a concern, even with generally okay global cues.
And the Reserve Bank of India, what did they do recently?
They'd cut the repo rate, that key interest rate, and signaled an accommodative stance. They also put out their latest inflation and GDP forecasts, plus updates on industrial production, forex reserves, FDI outflows, mutual fund flows, especially those SEPs.
SEPs are always a big talking point in India.
Huge. And draft guidelines from RBI on gold loans, government raising fuel taxes. Lots happening domestically.
What about the global economic picture, U.S. inflation? The Fed.
U.S. CPI had declined a bit. Fed minutes showed worries about inflation and growth risks, the tricky balancing act. UK economy grew slightly, but trade deficit widened. China had a big trade surplus, but maybe some underlying inflation worries there. New Zealand's central bank cut rates.
And banks in India were cutting deposit rates after the RBI move?
Sounds like it, yeah. Which isn't great for savers, obviously. Lots of stock picks flying around from fund houses, brokers weighing in on those RBI gold loan rules, analyzing early earnings from TCS, Tata Steel.
Busy time for analysts. Any big Wall Street news?
Goldman Sachs reported strong Q1 equities trading revenue, announced a buyback. Susquehanna apparently upgraded Infosys. The U.S. dollar index hit a 3-year low.
Interesting. And more earnings coming up?
Yep, list included IRETA, GM Breweries, Infosys again, Wipro, ICICI, HDFC, Yes Bank, Tata Elxsi. And China's March trade balance confirmed that surplus.
And Goldman Sachs bullish on gold.
Very. Raised their year-end target to $3,700 an ounce.
Wow, indeed. But Moody's less optimistic on India's growth.
Yeah, reportedly downgraded their 2025 GDP forecast for India slightly.
Yeah.
So, it's a really complex, interconnected global economic picture. Lots of moving parts.
Definitely sounds like it. Okay, let's pivot to geopolitical risks. KPMG's 2025 report, the key message. These aren't theoretical anymore.
Not at all. They're here now, actively shaping things. The report flags 5 really pressing challenges.
Okay, let's hear them.
1. Those tectonic shifts, power, economy, trade. Think the U.S. tariffs, new economic power centers emerging.
Yep.
2. The regulatory and tax mess complex, fragmented, that global minimum tax being implemented differently
Oh, you
everywhere.
touched on that. 3.
Technology, fast-moving politicized. Gen AI development, U.S.-China tech rivalry, regulations lagging behind innovation. 4. Threats to supply chains, assets, infrastructure, coming from rivalries, protectionism, conflict, cyber attacks, climate impacts. It's a minefield.
And 5.
People pressure, demographics, aging populations, retirement trends, technology, AI impacting jobs, reskilling needs, culture-changing worker preferences, culture wars even, all putting pressure on workforces.
So businesses need to be ready for disruption from basically anywhere.
Pretty much. The report stresses embedding geopolitical scenario planning right into strategy. Get better at anticipating tech and regulatory changes. Build in more operational flexibility.
Because most trade is exposed now.
Vast majority, yeah. So key actions for businesses. Monitor regulations constantly. Beef up cybersecurity and data governance. Build shorter, simpler supply chains, maybe using friendshoring, relying on politically aligned countries. And invest in corporate culture to navigate those social shifts.
Makes sense. Okay, finally, let's talk global health. World Health Day, April 7th, 2025. What was the focus?
A year-long campaign kicked off, Healthy Beginnings, Hopeful Futures, and the laser focus was on maternal and newborn health.
Which is still a huge challenge globally.
Absolutely critical. The statistics are, well, they're sobering. Around 260,000 women die every year from pregnancy or childbirth complications, over 2 million newborn deaths, another 2 million stillbirths.
That's horrific. How often is that happening?
It works out to about 1 preventable death mother or baby every 7 seconds.
Wow. And are we making progress towards the global goals?
Not fast enough. The report says 4 out of 5 countries are off track for the maternal survival targets for 2030, and about 1 in 3 are off track for the newborn death targets.
So there's an urgent need for better care.
Urgent need for high-quality care, physical and emotional before, during, and after birth, for women, for families.
What are the campaign's goals then?
Raise awareness, obviously. Advocate for more and smarter investment in these services. Encourage support for parents and health workers. And get useful health info out there. Basically, a global push to re-energize efforts so every woman, every baby gets the quality care they deserve.
A really vital focus. Okay, so wrapping this all up, this deep dive, what strikes you is how connected everything is, right?
Totally. AI's power and risks, that touches tech, the economy, geopolitics, climate change, impacts business operations, public health, global stability, economic volatility, geopolitical shifts. They create this uncertain background noise affecting everything else. And through it all, that fundamental need for global health, like maternal and newborn care, remains critical.
It really is just a snapshot, isn't it? A complex world changing incredibly fast.
Absolutely. And each piece we talked about, tech trends, climate data, economic indicators, geopolitical fault lines, really warrants digging deeper, thinking critically about what it means.
It makes you wonder, how will these all intersect? How will they shape the future we're heading into? And maybe for listeners, which of these areas feels most relevant to their world, their work right now?
Exactly. Look, hopefully, by taking this dive with us, by engaging with this info, you feel a bit better equipped, better able to see the connections, navigate the complexity, and maybe know where you want to learn more.
Staying informed feels like the essential first step, doesn't it?
It really does. In a world that's constantly evolving, it's the best tool we have.